pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take attendance, David McClellan. Kim Carr. Squad.
Here.
Brandon Clark, covered.
Here.
And then also, missing tonight is David Kelsey. And then we, have our, Foster Swift, attorney.
Leslie Abdu, ABDOO.
Welcome.
Nice to be here, nice to meet everyone.
You have your agenda there in front of you. Any concerns with the agenda tonight? Anybody? Okay, motion to, adopt the agenda. Second? Discussion? All in favor say yes?
Yes.
Nobody in favor, not in favor? Motion passed. Review, September 9th, meeting minutes.
Cato Township Planning Commission met for regularly scheduled meeting on Wednesday, September 9 at the Lakeview Community Center. Those present, David Burnwell, Kim Carr, Brandy Clark covered, Phil Morrow. Also present, David Kelsey, Cato Township Planning Administrator, absent Juana Stryker. Meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. by the chairperson. Minutes of the July 14 meeting were approved as presented. Public comment, there were ground rules set. There were the commission heard from Cato Township residents, the Montcalm County residents, and then all other. 26 guests, of which 10 were Cato Township residents. Comments shared by 19 attendees, both in favor and opposing wind energy. The attendance roster is attached to the original meeting minutes. Permits, Dave Kelsey provided an update since his last report. In June, 5 permits were granted. In August, 1 permit was granted. Wind ordinance review, Chairperson Phil Morrow opened the agenda item by stating he would like to see the subject tabled from further discussion. Brandy stated that she came prepared this evening to propose an extended moratorium, of which she has drafted and submitted to members of the commission, as the current moratorium is due to expire November 3rd. Her proposal suggested an extended 6-month moratorium that would expire May 3, 2022. In addition, Brandy noted that the Cato Township Board minutes of June 22nd, 2020 reflect a solar ordinance was adopted but is not found in the Cato Township Board Book of Ordinances, recorded as Ordinance 3.4.1, which raised the question as to whether a public hearing took place and whether the township is in compliance. Motion was made by Brandy Clark Hubbard, supported by Kim Carr, that David Burnwell present to the Cato Township Board on behalf of the commission that a 6-month moratorium on wind energy permits be extended to May 3rd, 2022. Motion carried. Motion was made by Brandy Clark Hubbard and supported by David Burnwell that Board Liaison David Burnwell present to the Township Board on behalf of the commission request for solar public hearing research and request a 12-month moratorium on solar energy permits to be granted to September 10, 2022. Kim Carr proposed that based on the lack of expertise, potentially inaccurate information and propaganda being shared from both sides of the subject, the commission request legal counsel be provided to the Cato Township Board through the board by the Cato Township Board through Board Liaison David Burnwell at the next regularly scheduled Township Board meeting. David stated he suggested support a couple of times to the board and agrees that legal direction is needed as the commission does not have the expertise needed at this point. Phil Morrow stated that we have a diverse commission and good, open, honest conversations, and agreed the commission is at a place where legal counsel should be sought. Brandy Clark Hubbard stated multiple times she wanted the commission to continue working as she has done extensive research and believes unlike other townships, the Cato Township Commission has come too far to put it down. She stated legal counsel is expensive and does not believe legal representation is necessary at meetings. She brought up conflict of interest and stated she will send samples to Chairman Morrow. Next meeting, Phil Morrow noted that the next regular meeting of the commission as scheduled for October 13th and December 8th. However, he will wait for Cato Township Board movement on appointing an attorney to support the commission. Therefore, the next meeting of the Cato Township Planning Commission will be announced at a later date. Meeting was adjourned at 9:02 p.m.
Give a motion to adopt the meetings. Second the motion.
My only comment would be, I think that September meeting was a special meeting. Wasn't a regular, scheduled regular meeting, it was special. So that was our third one of the, third out of 3 that the board originally approved.
That was, yes.
So I guess I would just make that minor change, and that's,
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Just like to officially welcome Leslie from Foster Swift. Appreciate you being here tonight and getting my share with the commission, if you will, or
Sure, yep. So my name is Leslie Abdu. I am a partner at Foster Swift in Grand Rapids. We have worked with many townships throughout the state, assisting on drafting and providing guidance to planning commissions and township boards on both solar and wind ordinances and other alternative energy sorts of projects. We are representing a couple of other townships here in Montcalm County related to the project that is proposed here in Cato Township. So happy to be here and happy to guide the planning commission and the township board through the process and address any questions or concerns that may come about.
very good.
thank you for coming tonight.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. David's not here tonight, so we'll skip the zoning. David Burnwell, as far as board update?
I mean, we did pass the 6-month moratorium for the wind and the 1 year for solar, and the only thing else is, talked at our last meeting was the VFW Hall requested for us to review switching them back to commercial property, and has anybody contacted you at all, Phil?
All I got was an email from, I think it was today, from Todd, by note. Is all I have, if you will.
Cause they wanted to apply for a liquor license, and in order to be able to do that to be commercial is how I understood it from the state, so,
So it's zone
yeah.
residential.
Yeah.
Today?
Need to be switched to commercial.
Yeah, I just got this note that says that he left on the table.
Okay, so I guess you have to wait to hear from the landowner that wants to, the owner of the old VFW hall. Before we can address that, now he's in the minutes.
It just says here, to whom it concerns, Cato Township, I, Leon Thompson, DBA Team Thompson, would like to request a change in the zoning for property 8968 North Greenville Road, Lakeview, Michigan 48850, aka VFW Hall. Asking that the zoning be changed from residential ag to commercial for the purpose of commercial use. Thank you for consideration. Leon Thompson, and he just has his phone number here. There's also a phone number here by the name of Rob. I'm not sure who that.
So I guess we'll have to table that till the next meeting, put it on the agenda, Phil, is that a proper way to do it? Is my guess.
Well, they would need to fill out a request to change the zoning.
A rezoning, just stepping into a rezoning is technically an amendment to the township zoning ordinance. It's a a zoning map amendment, so, like any other zoning ordinance amendment, we'll need to schedule a public hearing. It can be done at a regular planning commission meeting or a special meeting. We gotta publish notice, at least 15 days before that meeting, as well as, provide notice to all property owners within 300 feet of that property, as well as to the applicant, of course, and then that gives them an opportunity to present their application and for the planning commission to consider it. After that, the planning commission makes a recommendation on the rezoning to the township board, who ultimately has the final approval authority over that, so.
So you don't know if he's filled out an application?
Not that I mean,
Maybe
Dave
the
said,
same as like I had to do for my taller pole barn,
Mhm.
it's the same process.
Dave probably could have told us if he was here, but
Yeah.
circumstances he's in.
That's my understanding, that Dave Kelsey told, the board that there is no form, which is why he submitted this.
I think we just would have to take our existing amendment form and probably put zoning as a checkbox.
So is that Dave Kelsey who should
Yeah,
reach out to him and make sure?
he's the
that's
first
done?
one that you contact for any amendments.
I have a question.
Sure, yeah.
Is a rezoning, preferred over maybe like a special use
It
permit?
depends on the nature of what they're attempting to do. A rezoning is actually changing the zoning map. So it not only, allows a specific use of that property, but any use that might be permitted by right or by special land use in that zoning district that it's going to be rezoned to. So whereas a special land use permit is limited to whatever particular uses that they're intending to do. But that said, a special land use permit may be limited because the existing zoning may or may not allow that particular special land use on that property. So, I can take a look at the application and see whether or not the existing zoning would permit what they want to do on that property by either right or by special land use permit. And in that case, it would probably be more advantageous or easier to do it by special land use permit. However, if it's not listed as a permitted use by right or by special land use permit, then their only option would be to either get a use variance or to apply for rezoning. So it just depends on what district it's in currently and, what the intended use is, so.
I will say
And
that
the
it's
city
kind of
limits too.
surrounded by farmland, it's
Okay.
kind of south of town.
Right.
So,
No,
Okay.
it's not.
Yep.
No, it's the existing,
Oh,
The
okay, I
old-
was
the
thinking
old-
it was for the new building.
no,
Okay.
that's more village than.
Yeah.
I'm
And-
sorry, go backwards again, what would you say, Brandy, I'm sorry?
I was just, she was talking about the zoning map, and I would think that that's all agricultural, surrounding it, so to like change it to commercial.
Yup,
probably
and
wouldn't
you
fly.
gotta be careful too when you rezone property that you don't spot zone, so you don't wanna have a piece of an island of property, a commercially zoned property within a surrounding area of a district or property that's zoned in a different district. Other valuations for rezoning are consistent with the master plan, consistent with surrounding land uses, that kind of thing, so, it just depends on the nature of the surrounding land uses and what they wanna do with it, and whether or not, if the planning commission is, inclined to grant that, another option would be if it's not listed, if the use is not listed as a special land use in that district or as a use permitted by right, you can also amend the zoning ordinance to add it to that district as a special land use. That would require rezoning it to a different district. So you have a couple of options there, we just might need to look into it a little bit more.
In his note from Todd, I'm speaking, he says, we talked about it in our meeting, which means the board meeting. David Kelsey thought more of using a special use is more appropriate than using a spot zoning, if you will.
Right.
So even with that being said, the special use, he still needs to fill out a form. Correct?
So, my question is, then if he does a special land use and he sells it to somebody else, then it could go back to how it is existing right now, then?
It could, yeah, typically, and I'll have to take a look at your zoning ordinance on that, but, oftentimes, special land uses are transferable to, subsequent property owners. But it could also revert back to the, what the property is originally used for, as long as it's permitted under the zoning ordinance in that district, so. Whereas a rezoning, runs with the land, it stays, the rezoned district, no matter what, no matter who the owner is.
So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that if it's surrounded by farmland, it's gonna be the only commercial in that area.
Right.
It'd almost be better for a special.
Just, there is one neighbor, like right there,
Yeah.
a residential.
Yeah.
right next to the property.
Right, and again, like I said, you know, if that's the way that you wanna go about it, and that's not listed as a special land use in the district that it's currently zoned, you can amend the zoning ordinance to add it, but then place conditions on it, you know, so that it's appropriately, you know, placed within that district, but doesn't affect surrounding, you know, residentially zoned properties. You have a little bit more control over how you regulate it if you take that approach.
Any other discussion? So, like hearing you all, then we would like to do a special use.
I think that's what Leslie's saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to take, you know, before you consider it or approve it tonight, though, we're gonna wanna make sure that it's actually a special use in that district. We are also gonna need to hold a public hearing. It's a similar process, you know, and some zoning ordinances give planning commission final approval over special land uses. Some require the township board to have final approval. I'm just not sure how your zoning ordinance, you know, designates the process for special land use permits, but I wouldn't suggest that we approve it or adopt anything tonight. We're gonna wanna take a look at it just to make sure, but that's what I would tell the applicant is, you know, special land use might be the better way to go here, and, you know, we can work with them on how that might work.
So we'll table it at this point. We'll check and see where it's at in that particular area. And we'll look towards a special use permit. Do you know, David, if is Todd the one communicating with him?
Should be Dave Kelsey.
Yeah, I think Todd brought it up, but I mean, Dave Kelsey.
I think Dave Kelsey took it, sent it to Todd, because Todd asked me to put that on your
Oh, he did? Okay,
table.
okay. So we'll get back with David Kelsey then, so. Yep, okay.
And he should have the forms.
Any other discussion then? Okay, so we'll table that then until. David? Oh. No. Let's move to, public comments. Again, for those of you here tonight, we ask that, you speak for, 3 minutes. Please respect each other. Please don't direct comments towards individuals, please. Respect each other that are here tonight. Don't be calling out individuals. I would ask that you restrict your clapping and booing when it comes to different people's views, when it comes to comments that they're making. Please no sidebar conversations. If you need to speak with somebody, please step out in the hallway, down the hallway, by the restrooms, and have that so everybody else can continue to hear each other, if you will. And then my only thing is that if you have some new information, I know we've had these meetings for quite a few months now, and there's been a lot of talk out there, and boy, oh boy, I mean, my takeaway, our takeaway, I think, is new data, new conversation, new topic. Sometimes we hear the same old on the same topic and discussion, and I just would rather have some new discussion, new topics, new information that would help us when it comes to that whole piece there, so. With that being said, I would like to open up the public comments.
I'm not yet.
Anybody? Yes.
Could I correct this, Leslie? Can I ask her a question?
It's not a question and answer, it's more of a public comment, if you will. We're not here to answer questions.
No.
You can make a comment though.
Yeah.
State your name.
Marcy Myers, Cato Township, I'm a real estate broker. I submitted in the past to the board a property sales guarantee that a lot of, I've seen wind ordinance, solar ordinance have provided in, townships and ordinances. Have you worked with those before?
What, property rights?
The sales guarantee.
This is
Yeah,
more-
and if you don't want me to answer any questions,
This
then
is
I
more,
will.
this is more
Yep.
about,
Okay, so just to let you know, I did submit one, and I believe that that could be a really good part of the ordinance that we're putting together with this one. So there'll probably be more discussion, hopefully, comments. Thank you.
think of it. Anybody else? Yes,
Just a real quick one,
what's your name?
Linda Reynolds. In the past, have you said the Pledge of Allegiance? Have you always said it?
No.
Thank you so much for doing that today. The board, I asked them about it and they said they haven't done it in 40 years, that they didn't see why to start, so I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
David Dowling, Cato Township. I've got some signatures here for
What was your last name, David?
Dowling, D-O-W-L-I-N-G, Township resident.
Yep.
I've got some signatures here for the project for the Montcalm wind, for the windmills, if I could pass it in to the committee.
Sure.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak to this, David? Or just hand it in?
I've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been in this township my whole life, and this county, and retired out of this county from Federal Mogul. Drove school bus here. This room here, I learned advanced first aid to run the ambulances and rescue back in the day, before Aeromed into Grand Rapids. This project is a good project. I believe there's some ordinances that should be looked at, some things have to be looked at. Touring the farms over in Gratiot County and touring the farms up in Isabella, there's already a wind flicker program that's put into these windmills, on these turbines. They stop turning when they get to a building. They've got that programmed in now. And so the shadow flicker issue is done. We didn't hear any noise coming off of that at 1,000 feet. I took my rangefinder with me and I was at 1,000 feet that day. There was no noise on that windmill whatsoever until it slowed down and the brake came on. So I'm for the project, and thank you.
Thank you, David. Anybody else? Yes.
Christel, I've lived in this township my whole life too. And, I'm not for these windmills. And it'll destroy the scenery. If, non-participating co-ownership of next to a participating one, they need to have waivers. The landowner needs to have waivers from his neighbors for this, for the health and safety of the neighbor. So, and all this is a money grab.
What's that?
Yep.
Thanks, Chris. Anybody else? Yes.
Pam Hemmis, Montcalm Township. One thing I'd like to point out is when you were reading the minutes from the last meeting, it was stated that as those opposing wind energy. And I think a lot of us don't outright oppose wind energy. In fact, we would love if there were a good, safe way to use the wind. I think it's more appropriate to say that those that are asking for safety features in the wind ordinance would be more appropriate than calling us anti-wind or opposing wind, because that's just not completely accurate, because we would like to see wind if it worked in our communities and you could place them far enough away so that they would be safe for everybody. I just wanted to tell a little story of a good friend, traveling to Ohio and going through wind turbine territory for about 8 miles. She has, an 8-year-old child who has multiple sensitivities, and life is difficult for him, and there are a lot of people that have sensitivities these days for some strange reason. And as they were going through this area, as they entered it, he told his mom that it made these things make my brain feel crazy. And he even came up with a name for them. He called them sky scratchers, which I thought was kind of interesting. And they went on their trip and they came back through, and it was the same thing as they approached. He said, they make my brain feel crazy. So there was something within that field that was affecting this child. And the Pine Township supervisor actually called her, because I brought this story up down there too. And he wondered if, if he could give her a call, and she was happy to talk to him. And I just think it's, you have to be aware that there are problems with these, and there are problems with the distance that they are from people. And I think it's about, a survey was done over in the Tuscola area, and they found that it was at 2,500 feet when people stopped being able to hear them. But anything closer, and there are days when you can't hear them at all. There are days when you can only hear them a little. I've never been by them when you couldn't hear them at all. But we have many people also from other states who send us information and videos. And this week we were able to watch, excuse me, we were able to watch one with shadow flicker. And she has posted before her videos. And it's, if you were only there for 5 minutes, it would probably be okay, but it's continual, for a period of time, and it is disturbing. And also the sound, another family that's moving away, they're keeping their property so nobody else can put turbines on it. They're farmland so nobody else can put turbines on it, but they're looking for something within the same school district where they know nobody will be putting turbines nearby.
Very good.
And just little evidences, that they are bothersome to people.
Thanks, ma'am.
Mhm.
Yes.
Matt Hubbard, Cato, Township. I just have some information on my phone. I'm not gonna try to play it, but if anybody wants to look at it, it's from November 28th. Gentleman was talking about 1,000 foot. This window sets 1,400 foot somebody's house. If anybody wants to listen to it, they're more than welcome to. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. Yes.
Jamie Snyder, Cato Township. I want to piggyback off of Pam's. I had mentioned it in the past of putting an amendment in our ordinance about children that have autism or something like that, and putting it a certain distance away from their homes, because they would be greatly affected from it versus, normal people. But I would love to see something like that to protect the kids that have sensory disorders.
Thank you, Jamie. Anybody else? Yes.
Carol Haggett,
Okay.
Douglas Township. It's a little hard for me to respond to your proposed ordinance, not seeing it, but a couple things come to mind. You've got shadow flicker right here going on in this room. Now, some of you will be sensitive to it and notice it and pick up on it, and others won't. But that's just kind of something that just kind of hit me. Now, other townships are bringing up other issues too. There's this whole hydrological study, in addition to soil and erosion studies being proposed. There's a question of elevation. If you're looking at a 300-foot wind turbine, but it's up another 200 feet, you're looking at 500 right there. It's something to consider if you've got changes in your elevation throughout your township. Aircraft lighting, maybe you've talked about that, but also adding a setback. I appreciate this gentleman saying that he's for the wind, and it's the first time in over a year of attending township meetings that a pro-winder has even suggested that maybe shadow flicker and sound isn't an issue, but you know what? We have been trying to suggest safe setbacks, no shadow flicker at non-participating parcels, and, you know, come on, sound. I mean, these are pretty obvious things, but let's just try to keep it real. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Anyone else? Okay, so for public comments, thank you people for sharing your information with us, truly appreciate it. Let's go into the moratorium. I think, let's just talk through that a little bit. Dave, you said that the board approved our other 6 months, right? And I know Leslie gave us all an ordinance, and Leslie, it's your opinion that we shouldn't just vote on this and have it documented in the meeting notes?
Yeah, so there's a legal doctrine called the doctrine of equal dignity, which essentially means that in municipal law, an act of equal dignity must be amended or changed by another act of equal dignity. So for example, an ordinance cannot be amended by motion or by resolution. It has to be amended by ordinance. A resolution is amended by resolution. It's my opinion that a moratorium essentially acts as a temporary amendment to an ordinance, being the zoning ordinance or the effect of the zoning ordinance. So we always advise that to impose a moratorium, it be done by an actual ordinance of the township board. Because doing a motion to put a temporary halt on the enforcement of the zoning ordinance is not an act of equal dignity as it was to adopt the original zoning ordinance regulations. So typically what we recommend when we adopt a moratorium is to have either the planning commission make a recommendation to the township board, or the township board can take up the issue on its own by adopting an ordinance and then publishing notice of that adoption in the newspaper as it does for any other regular police power ordinance. So that would be my recommendation. I did bring copies of a sample moratorium that goes through what its legal effect is, the purposes and findings. This particular one is a 12-month moratorium, but it's my understanding we've discussed 6 months here in Cato Township, which is fine as well. This also, within its terms in section 4, talks about the possibility of renewal by resolution of the township board, and then of course publishing notice of that renewal.